Hi everyone, Jody Conrad here with Recreation and Park Services for the Municipality of Chester. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. Normally I've got you in the woods with me on a bit of a hike or something like that. But today I wanted to talk about bicycles and specifically what you can do at home to get your bikes ready for the season after probably sitting in your garage or in your basement or under your deck or something like that for the winter. Nothing fancy, nothing difficult, but just some things you can do with some really basic tools at home to get it up and running. So let's get rolling. So I've got my old bike here that I dug out of my shop here, and it's from probably the early 90s or so. It was a great bike then. It remains to be a good bike, but it's got a dirty chain. It's got flat tires, front and back. It's generally in a dusty state. So I'm going to just clean it up a little bit, make sure there's nothing loose or coming apart that might be dangerous. And so today we're going to look at tires. We're going to look at how to clean your chain, really basic cleaning of your chain, and just a general check over of the bike in general. So let's look at the tires first and get some air in these things. The first thing you need to find out is how much air should be in the tires, and it's usually written right on the sidewall. Turn this up right way so we can see it. And there, so it says 35 psi to a max of 65 psi. That's pounds per square inch. So that's how much air we can put in the tires, and I'd like to go probably somewhere in the middle of that, so maybe 45 psi, something like that. So while I'm here, I'm going to look at the tire in general just to make sure there's no cracks in the sidewall of the tire, make sure the tread is looking pretty good. These tires look pretty great actually, and make sure there's no bulges or anything like that in the tire. And there's the valve stem where we're going to attach our pump. In our part of the world, there are generally two types of valve stems that you'll find on a bicycle. This is called Presta valve. A Presta valve, the other kind is a Schrader valve. Your bicycle actually probably has a Schrader valve, which is just like what you would find on your car. This is a Presta valve, and what you need to do is unscrew the little top piece there, and then that allows air to go inside that nozzle. So let's attach our pump. So there I've got my pump connected to the tire. I'm just going to go ahead and pump it up to 45 psi. I've got a pump with a gauge on it, which is nice. If you don't have one of those, just go ahead and pump until your tire feels like it should for a bicycle. Feels firm enough to hold you up, not too soft that you get a flat tire, and not too hard to give you a bone-rattling ride. Next up is the drivetrain, like I said, and just look at that chain. That's looking pretty nasty and needs some love. Let's get on it. So there are actual bicycle chain cleaning devices that you can buy. I don't have one of those, so I'm just going to resort to a good old rag and some elbow grease. And like I said, this is not a professional job by any means. This is not the quality of a job that you'd have done at a bicycle shop, for example, or if you had one of those machines. But basically, I'm going to take my rag, and you're going to get a bit dirty with this for sure. I'm going to take my rag and just sort of grab the chain on the bottom here, and I'm going to pedal backwards and just keep a little bit of a grip on the chain, not too much, not too tight that you're going to stop the chain from moving, but not too loose that you're not actually going to remove that grime and grease. And as I'm doing that, I mean, look at that, that's pretty nasty. So it's working. Go ahead and just sort of massage those links around. As you're pedaling backwards, you can bring the chain up so that you're getting the top of the rollers of the chain. Pedal backwards a few times like that, and then conversely, go down, push down so you're getting the bottom of the rollers with your rag as well. And that'll get a lot of the grime off of there. So just keep doing that. And I should say, I've got a bike stand here that I'm using, but if you don't have that, which most of us don't, what I used to use is just a piece of rope hanging from the rafters of my shop, and I would loop it over the saddle and get the rear tire off the ground. And if you don't have that, get a friend, get a sibling, get your mom or dad or your kids, depending on who's doing it, to lift the back of the bike off of the ground. So that's starting, you can feel it starting to get smooth right away. So I'm going to do that for a while and just stop the video here for now. Another great tool to have, folks, for this job is a good old toothbrush, preferably one that you're not going to use in your mouth again, as you can see by the condition of this one. But it allows you to get in those nooks and crannies and in between the cogs and get all those chunks and gobs of grease that built up over there, built up in there over the last season, and get it out of there. Get in these little jockey wheels on the bottom here, and even just like cleaning the chain, you can pedal backwards. Again, if you've got a friend to lift the back of the bike up, or if you're hanging it from the rafters of your shop, this works really well. Good use for an old toothbrush for sure. The next step, of course, once your chain is decently clean and your cogs are decently clean, is to reapply some lubricant. And that will help your chain to shift a little bit better. It'll keep your bike quiet, and it will prevent things from wearing out quite so fast. This is actual bike lube that I've got, but if you don't have that, I'm going to go ahead and tell you to use what you've got right now. If you've got WD-40, go ahead and use that. Be careful with WD-40. It eats grease, and so it's dangerous around some of the other parts of the bike and hubs and stuff where you want grease. So use it sparingly, but I'd say go ahead and use it right now. If you've got motor oil or silicone grease, anything like that, you can get on the chain is great. So I like to put the lube down along the bottom of the chain, and I like to do that because that's where, if you picture that chain coming up around the cogs here, that's where you need the lube, not on top, right? The top, it just sits up on top. So go ahead and get some lube on each link. Take your time to do that. And once you've done that section, you can just pass that through and do the next section until you've done the entire chain. And once we do that, we'll run through the gears a little bit and make sure that lube is well worked in. So there I've got my lube on the chain, and I'm just working it in there, giving the pedals a few cranks. I'm going to actually try to run through the gears here and see how things are shifting. A little bit cranky, but it's working, so things haven't seized up too much over the winter. A little bit cranky there. We'll address that next, but right now we'll stop, and I'm going to take that old rag I've got, and since I've worked that lube in a little bit, there's lots of sort of extra lube on there, and I want to get that off because that will attract dirt. So I'm just going to quickly give the chain another quick wipe. Just like that. I don't want to take it all off, but that looks pretty great. Let's now have a look at some of the gear issues that I've just discovered. Now, I did notice when I was lubricating the chain there that the bike is not shifting that well. It's not shifting from this big cog down to the next one very well. I'll show you what I mean. Right now, the bike is in the right gear. And I don't know if you can hear me shift or not, but I'm going to try to shift down from this cog to this cog. And it's not going. You can hear it trying to. It's got that clickety-clickety-click sound, but it's not quite able to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this barrel adjuster right here, and I hope you can see that. I'm going to turn it inwards. I'm going to turn it in half and see what that does. Look at that. That dropped right down. So let me just see if I can get back up into that gear, because if it can't, it means I've turned that barrel adjuster too much. Yeah, there it went. Just nice. So I'm going to try it again. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to work my way down the cogs. So far, so good. Nice. And will it go back up? A little cranky there. I'll go back down, try again. A little cranky, so I'm going to undo that a little bit. So what I did up top, I'm just going to undo it a little bit, not too much. Turn it back out. See if it'll go. Look at that. Pretty smooth. We'll call that success. The next thing I'm going to do, now that we've got our tires inflated, we've got our drivetrain working well and lubricated and cleaned, is I'm just going to go over the bike with a clean rag, and not the rag that I used that's now all greasy from the chain, but just a nice clean rag, and I'm just going to, give it some love, and I'm going to talk nicely to my bike, because my bike treats me well, don't you, bike? And just get all the the crud off of it and make it look good. You want to look good. It's a sweet ride after all, right? This thing takes you places. So we'll do that, and then I'm going to show you one last step before we are able to go for our first ride of the spring. All right, let me pause there. The last thing I like to do before I get on the bike for the first time is a couple things, but I just want to make sure that things are tight and safe for me to hop on and go for the first ride. One of the things I like to do is just pick the bike up just a little bit off the ground and give it a drop. Now that sounds funny, but what I'm listening for and looking for is the feeling of something being loose, the wheels being loose, the pedals and cranks being loose, anything like that that's loose will rattle just with a little bit of a drop. Now that feels pretty firm to me. The other thing I'd like to do is put on the brakes, especially the front brake, and rock the bike back and forth. I'm feeling for any looseness in what's called the headset. So that's the whole mechanism that attaches the handlebar and stem, this piece here, to the fork below. And I'm going to give that a rock. I'll even turn the wheel this way and give it a rock. Everything feels pretty tight there. If you feel something loose, it may not be the end of the world, but it means that this needs to be tightened up a little bit. And there's special wrenches and things typically needed for that. You might be able to get a big pipe wrench or something like that in there, but basically you want to find that out before you hop on for a ride. I'm going to give the wheels a little bit of a wiggle side to side and make sure that nothing, again, side to side here, nothing is loose. And I'm going to give the cranks a little wiggle back and forth this way, just to make sure everything feels tight. Now again, if you feel something loose there, especially in the cranks and the bottom bracket area, that's what this piece down here is called, you may need to go to a shop to get some help with that. But basically, again, this is a safety check. You want to make sure that your bike is safe for you to hop on. So I'll bend down here so I can see you. I hope that was helpful for you. I enjoyed doing that, and the key is you don't need, again, this is not going to give you a super wonderful tune-up that a bike shop would be able to do for you. But right now, folks, we just need to get outside, and I wanted to help you do that. So please get your bikes out, put some air in the tires, make sure things are humming along, and get out and enjoy it. And until next time, see you next time to explore your backyards a little bit more, and take care, folks.